Week 10 of the fantasy football season, and his wide receivers starts and sits every matchup. This week, the first matchup, Atlanta Falcons at the Carolina Panthers on Thursday Night Football. So right here, Drake London, it's been an up and down rookie season here for the young wide receiver. But this week here, he's a borderline option. A couple weeks ago, had a mediocre game at the same Carolina Panther team. So right here, it's been a Marcus Mariota problem more than anything. With this team, they're just looking to run the football with three different running backs in Patterson, Huntley, and Algier, and Mariota rushing the football a lot as well. So right now, London, like I said, he got off to a big start first 3-4 weeks of the season, but he's really dropped off, and this week he's nothing more than a flex option in deeper leagues. So I got him as borderline. Now to the Panthers, DJ Moore had a big game a few weeks ago versus the Atlanta Falcon team, tying the game up, but then taking his helmet off and causing a big penalty that then Pinheiro missed a field goal and it went to overtime and the Falcons won the game. But anyway, DJ Moore in that one went over 150 yards and found the end zone. And this one here, I think he got a good game once again. And he's a start this week after coming off a dud performance last week in a ball game where the Bengals just blew the doors off. And now Terrace Marshall, the last few weeks I've been mentioning him as a pickup on the waiver wire, and he's a big wide receiver. They drafted him last season, and I think this week here Marshall could have another decent ball game. A couple weeks ago versus Falcon team, he went in with a pretty decent fantasy day, 9.70 fantasy points. So right now he's getting integrated in the offense more. PJ Walker, he likes him, and like I said, he's got good skill set for a number 2 wide receiver. Seahawks, Tampa Bay Bucks, Germany. So right now DK Metcalf and Lockett, it seems like one of these guys at least scores a touchdown every week. So right here, they're locked in as easy starts this week. Not much to say about them. Geno Smith's playing great. These guys involved. And this Seahawks team, they shocked a lot of people this season. And their starts, even versus a pretty solid defense. Now Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, same type of thing. These guys that you start every week. I know Tom Brady hasn't been Tom Brady really this season, but it wasn't really surprising me to see him turn the switch as the weeks go on here. And we saw it last week. Brady game-winning drive with a few seconds left ended to Kate on. So right now, if Brady could get back on track, Mike Evans and Godwin could really put up those big numbers. And I got him as both starts this week. Julio Jones, he's been decent the last couple games back into the lineup, but now once again banged up. And he's just not a guy you can trust anymore. He's not the elite Julio he was in his Falcon days. And he's a sit this week. Denver Broncos at Tennessee Titans. And Courtland Sutton, it's been a rough couple weeks here for him. But now coming out of the bye week here, I think his team, they're going to get Sutton the ball a little bit more. I know Greg Dulcich's had some good target games and Jerry Jeudy. But Courtland Sutton, I feel like he's a guy that's a perfect number 2 wide receiver for fantasy owners. And a guy who could put up 15, 20 fantasy points a week. And this week here at Tennessee, I think he could be decent. And I got him as a start. Jerry Jeudy, on the other hand, he really hasn't done much this season. He was in a lot of trade rumors going into the NFL draft when nothing came to fruition. So right here in deeper leagues, I got him as a borderline option. But basic 10 and 12s, he's not really a guy I'd be interested in starting this week. And Robert Woods, he's been the number 1 over there all season for Tennessee. And he really hasn't made an impact, unfortunately, where I thought Woods would. So right now, he's a sit. Now Cleveland Browns at the Miami Dolphins. And in this one, I think this could be a mini shootout between these two teams. Amari Cooper, he's been great this season, no doubt about it, with this Cleveland Brown team. Only thing with him is home-away splits this season aren't great. And they weren't even great in his Dallas Cowboys seasons over there. But anyway, Amari Cooper, he's been making plays. Brissett trusts him, putting the ball in the right spots for him, and I have as a start. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, believe it or not, I have as a start as well. Over the last few, he's had double-digit fantasy points 3 weeks in a row. So right now, he's had a good rapport with Brissett. He's a deep threat, and he's a guy that can run routes, and he's available in tons of fantasy leagues as well. So if Donovan Peoples-Jones, by chance, is still out there on your wire, you pick him up. Now to Tyreek Hill and Waddle, this could be the one best 2 punch at wide receiver position this season here. Hill already 1,000 yards on the season. He's really having a monster year. You start him. And Jalen Waddle, another great season here for him. So Tua's got confidence. He's hitting these guys. Good matchup once again versus the Browns here. And they must start wide receivers this week. New Orleans Saints at the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Chris Olave locked in for the remainder of the season as the number 1 wide receiver, with Michael Thomas out for the season, which I've been saying for weeks. He was dogging it, and he just didn't want to play. But anyway, that's a story for another day. But Chris Olave, an impressive rookie year. I think he possibly could win Rookie of the Year on offense this season. He's a playmaker. He's got confidence. He's got poise. And he can run the routes as well. And Andy Dalton has been finding him over the last few weeks. Jarvis Landry, I thought he was going to return in the Week 9 ball game on Monday Night Football. But obviously that wasn't the case for Landry here versus the Baltimore Ravens. So right now this week, you can't trust him. Even if healthy, you can't trust him. And I have him as a sit this week now that the Steelers wide receivers Deontay Johnson and Pickens. I like them both this week here. Chase Claypool just traded to the Bears. So now Pickens more of an opportunity. And a guy we know that's got big ability plays and a guy can make a catch anywhere in his radius. I think Pickens could have a decent game versus a leaky Saints secondary. I got him as a start. And Deontay Johnson, we know he's a possession receivers. He makes plays, underneath routes, deep routes, and he's a guy that always finds a way to get open. He's a good route runner. He's Deontay Johnson here versus a leaky Saints secondary. I got him as a start. Now the Lions at the Chicago Bears. Amon St. Brown, he really hasn't been the same in the last 5 or 6 weeks here. He's not really getting the job done. I'm still going to throw him out there versus a pretty weak Chicago Bear defense. Right now, Khalif Raymond, Week 9, he didn't do anything. Is Khalif Raymond. Only, I think, 3 or 4 fantasy points. So right now I got him as a borderline option. Him and Jared Goff had a decent rapport the first few weeks here. We had an expanded role with double-digit points as Raymond. But right now, he's not getting the job done. In last week's game, he's a borderline option at best. And Josh Reynolds, he's been banged up over the last couple weeks. He's put up a couple goose eggs. But now we haven't seen much of Josh Reynolds or heard about him over the last couple weeks. So right now, he's a guy would easily would sit. We don't know when he's coming back now to the Bears. Darnell Mooney, he's been playing better football over the last few weeks. And this Bear team finally has an identity as well, that they're going to run the football down your throat. If it's Justin Fields, Herbert, or Montgomery. And then he's going to lure you to sleep on those play actions and start hitting his guys as Justin Fields. So right here, Mooney and Claypool in a good matchup versus one of the worst secondaries in all pro football. I like them both as starts this week. The next game, Minnesota Vikings at the Buffalo Bills. So Justin Jefferson, he's a stud, no doubt about it. Coming off a big game finally after slumping for a few weeks. But he's a start this week. Adam Thielen, a borderline option. I just feel like he maxes out at 12, 13 fantasy points. At most, you're going to get out of him. So he's not really a game changer unless you're not giving up much for him. But this week here in a tough matchup versus the Bills, a team that obviously is going to come up riled up after losing a tough one last week here versus the New York Jets. And Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, you just roll those guys out there. I know Gabe Davis, the catches haven't been there, or the yards or the fantasy points, obviously. But he's still a guy playing every snap right now for this Buffalo Bill team. He's still a big target. And last week, they just missed him on a couple deep ones where he would have had a monster fantasy day. So right here, Gabe Davis, this week here, I'm going to give him the nod one more time. And Stephon Diggs was a top pick, and he's living up to the hype. You're obviously starting him as well. Now to the Houston Texans at the Giants. Brandon Cooks last week, mysterious reason why he didn't play. Maybe they were going to trade him or whatever the case may be, but he's back in the facility this week. Here's Brandon Cooks. And right now I got him as a borderline option. This season he really hasn't done anything for fantasy owners, and he's done nothing but create a headache for the most part for this Houston Texan team. So right here, his counterpart, Nico Collins, he should come back in this ball game, obviously. But right here, he's not a guy I really could trust, is Nico Collins, because he's another guy, you know what you're going to get from him anywhere 5, 12 fantasy points, which obviously is decent if you want to pencil that in. But you're looking for a big hitter right now this time of year. But anyway, Nico Collins I have as a sit. And now to the Giants side of things, they're not really moving the football well to their wide receivers. And I know Slayton's had a decent couple games. I know Robinson, beside that one game, we had 37 yards and a touchdown versus Baltimore. So him and Slayton, I'm going to mention this one. They're not really playing great football, these wide receivers. And the Giants are getting away with victories. We're running the football and playing good defense. So right here in this one, I don't think I could see Slayton and Robinson really doing much. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Kansas City Chiefs. So Christian Kirk, main target over there in Jacksonville. You give them the start. And it's going to be a ball game where they're chasing points. Zay Jones and Marvin Jones, I'm sitting both of them this week. Very inconsistent. One week, these guys could have monster games at 20, 25 fantasy points. And then the next week, not really going to do anything here. So right now, Zay Jones, he had a couple flashes early in the year and now hasn't done much in multiple weeks. And the same here with Marvin Jones. He had a couple blow-up games here and there, but not really a guy you could count on this week here. And I have him as a sit. Now Kansas City, Juju Smith-Schuster, the last 3 or 4 weeks he's found it with Patrick Mahomes here. And these guys are clicking on all cylinders over the last couple weeks. So Juju's a start, no doubt about it. He's the number one over there in Kansas City, undisputedly. And he's making plays and playing for that next contract as well. Mecole Hardman, 4 games in a row with double-digit fantasy points. So this week here, there's no way I'm going to sit Mecole Hardman. You got to throw him out there. He's making plays. He's Hardman. He's being a gadget guy, but more of a receiver, surprisingly, for this Chiefs team. And this week here, you got to give him the nod with 4 good games in a row. And now Marquez Valdes-Scantling, the same old with him. You'll show some promise with a big ball game. Then you pick him up, he don't do anything. Chief offense is hitting on all cylinders anyway without Valdes-Scantling doing anything. So this week he's a sit. Kadarius Toney's a sit as well. I know they traded for him a couple weeks ago at the deadline from the New York Giants. But right here, Toney, we haven't seen him play all season. He's got to pick up this playbook a little bit more. But definitely down the line, he could be a guy that can have fantasy appeal. But this week here, I have him as a sit. Indianapolis Colts at the Vegas Raiders. So Michael Pittman, it's been a tough season here for him. But since he's the number one over there in Indianapolis, and now with Jeff Saturday as the head coach, maybe they'll mix things up a little bit here. But right now, Michael Pittman's a borderline option. Alec Pierce and Campbell, they've showed some flashes this season here, but not guys that are consistent. And at this point, you're just going to sit him. I don't see Pierce doing much. Last week, 3.30 fantasy points. And Paris Campbell not doing much with the offensive line woes and just Sam Elgin not being any good. It's a tough one here this week to play your Colts receivers with Pierce and Campbell a sit and Pittman borderline. Now to the Raiders, Davante Adams had a comeback ball game after scoring 1.5 fantasy points a couple weeks ago here. So right now, Davante Adams looks good. He's making the big plays. And this Raider team here, middle of the pack type of team. But Adams gets the nod, and Matt Collins and Renfrow too inconsistent for my taste. They're not doing anything of late here. I know Matt Collins had a big ball game a couple weeks ago, but besides that, nothing else going on over there in Las Vegas. And you're going to start Davante Adams and sit Matt Collins, and Renfrow has been one of the worst wide receivers this season here, especially at the bust is Hunter Renfrow. Now, Arizona Cardinals at the Los Angeles Rams. Hopkins, he's been putting up numbers. He's been finding the end zone. And this week here, wouldn't be surprising, again, if he does it. So he's a starter. Rondé Moore, second season in the league. He's starting to get an expanded role. He's starting to make a few plays. And like I said, he's a quick guy that could really turn things upside down for opposing teams if he gets a chance here to have even more of a big role here. No pun intended, he's with Rondé Moore. So right now, Cooper Kupp, he's a start each and every week. He's the heart and soul and pretty much the only big name right now on this Los Angeles Ram team. And every week you pencil him in 20 to 25 fantasy points. And I got him as a start this week. Allen Robinson, too inconsistent for my taste. He really hasn't done much over the last couple weeks, and he's a guy I would sit this week. And Van Jefferson, I thought he was going to come back, be a guy to stretch the field to make a few plays here. But that obviously hasn't been the case. I have him as a sit as well. Now to the Dallas Cowboys at the Packers. CeeDee Lamb, you pretty much start him each and every week. Him and Dak Prescott have had a good rapport over there in Dallas over the last few seasons. And Lamb, like I said, he missed a few games earlier, but right now trying to catch up with this Dallas Cowboy team and get a good victory. I got him as a start this week. And Michael Gallup, on the other hand, I have as a sit. So Michael Gallup, he got involved early in the ball game versus the Chicago Bears in Week 8, I should say. And then after that, he pretty much disappeared, is Michael Gallup. So right now, Dak's pretty much throwing at Elliott or Pollard out of the backfield, and to CeeDee Lamb, obviously, and Dalton Schultz. So right now, Michael Gallup looks like he could be the odd man out for now here. But obviously, he's still going to be a guy that's on the radar as the season goes on. Now to the Packers, Allen Lazard, he's the number one over there in Green Bay. Pretty much the only guy doing anything at the wide receiver position, and he's a start. Now Romeo Doubs, we know he's hurt. We don't know if he's ruled out for sure. I just have him on here just in case. I got him as a sit this week, Romeo Doubs. Hopefully he heals up from the high ankle sprain and he's back in the latter parts of the season. And Christian Watson, he's been a walking injury, another concussion in this ball game here for Christian Watson. last week versus the Lions. So right here, I would still not play him even if he was 100%, but he's a sit-in. Sammy Watkins, they thought he'd be a deep ball threat, but his best days are obviously behind him, and he's done the Green Bay Packers team. Late Night Football, Chargers at the 49ers. Keenan Allen, if he does somehow come back in this ball game, I got him as a start. Joshua Palmer coming off a nice game, over 100 yards last week here, but this week here, tougher matchup versus San Francisco, especially if Keenan Allen comes back. We don't see him doing much. So right now, Josh Palmer, I have as a borderline option, and DeAndre Carter, I have as a sit here. He didn't do much in the slot last week for this Charger team, and like I mentioned, if Keenan Allen comes back, these guys are not going to get an opportunity here. So right now, I got Carter as a sit, and out to San Francisco, Deebo Samuel. We know he's one of the best gadget guys. Not the greatest he is with injuries and stuff, but I think down in this stretch here, Deebo, we could see him go out there and make plays. This week here, Deebo will have another good one. Brandon Ayuk, he's been coming into his own over the last few weeks here, and he's a wide receiver that could go out there and make some plays. So right here, I got Deebo as a start and Brandon Ayuk as a start this week. And the final ball game of the week, Washington Commanders at the Eagles. So Terry McLaurin, over the last few weeks since Heineke's been inserted into the starting lineup, he's been making more plays, more targets going his way. Him and Heineke have a good rapport, and he's a guy this week, even versus a tough secondary, with Slay most likely going to be on him. I have him as a start. Curtis Samuel, on the other hand, it's been an up and down season here for Samuel, but he's obviously a fantasy option. But this week here, I have him as a borderline option because he could be a tail with two tapes. 1 week scored 2 and another 17 here for Curtis Samuel. So this week here in a tough matchup, I got him as a borderline guy. Jahan Dotson, we'll see if he comes back in this one, but even if he does, I have him as a sit. We haven't seen much activity out of the rookie since week 3 or week 4, and they were hoping he would be back already here as this Commander team, but obviously that wasn't the case. And now to Philly, A.J. Brown and Smith, you start each and every week. A.J. Brown, he's been a monster this season for the most part in fantasy football. And Devonta Smith, he's had a couple blow-up games, but besides that, hasn't done much. But I got a feeling he could break out on Monday Night Football here versus the Washington Commanders. And he's a big play receiver and sits at the wide receiver position